Good evening and welcome to All for Women's Football. It is episode 60, believe it or not, of Lower League Lingo. We've been doing this over 2 seasons now. It's been a delight, and the WNL is virtually over. We know who's going up. We know who's going down. There's still a couple to sort out. Who are they? See you in a minute, we'll tell you. Do you know what? I know we try and be unbiased in this show, but it did kind of go nicely, the music, so that the Wolves are going up. The Wolves are going up. It does if you try it.
Fingers crossed, mate. Fingers crossed.
Give it a go. You just never know when it might just do that. Right. Listen, lovely to see you all. Great to have your company for the evening. We will have Stu with us shortly. He is just on dad duty at the moment, and as we all know, children are nothing if not angels when it comes to bedtime. So yeah, he might not make it at all. Yeah, just never know. But we will see how it goes. But we have got loads to look over, Nick, and it is lovely to have you with us. We obviously missed you last week. So how the devil are you, sir?
I'm very well, sir. Yourself?
Loving life. Loving life. What's there not to love about this wonderful world and the football that goes within it? So, yeah, listen, easy thing to look through this time. We are literally just going to look through the 6 divisions within the WNL. See who is up, who is consigned to relegation, unless, of course, there is some form of magical reprieve, which does happen in these divisions. So there is always a chance, but they are definitely hanging on by the slimmest of threads in that case. So where are we going to start? Well, there was a chance we were going to start with the South this time, but that's not how it's turned out. So instead, we will go straight to the North. And
glorious North.
Straight to the North.
North.
And here we are with a rather professional-looking C, as you can see, for the Championes in this division. And, you know, it's harsh going straight into this one with you, Nick, but I suppose it's a bit like ripping the plaster off. As soon as we've done that, it'll just be all pleasurable from there on in. But it was, to be fair, quite a final day across the entire WNL. I mean, in all fairness and seriousness, Nick's going to be quite upset as he talks through today. But I feel like if Stu gets on, it was probably slightly worse for him. So that's going to have a little bit more of a tug on the heartstrings, I would think. But as I say, I think deep down, Nick, if we're being honest, Burnley going up, I think you can absolutely give them the pat on the back as well. Between Burnley and Wolves, those two sides have absolutely owned this division. It was always going to be one of the two, and it's been a very closely run battle between the two. But looking at the final day, when you looked at those final matches, Burnley were going to be playing against Stoke City, and of course yourselves are against Halifax. It was always likely that you were going to win against Halifax, but although Stoke are 4th, they still had in the end almost half of the points that Burnley had. So we were really probably looking at a final day where both of those sides were expected to win. It was going to take something miraculous. And unfortunately on this occasion for you, it didn't happen. But for Burnley, it's promotion.
Yeah, it was one of those where I think, if I'm honest, no one expected Stoke to win. We just wondered whether they would have been able to hang out for a draw. I've not seen the first penalty. Someone did say it might have been a bit dodgy for Burnley's first goal. It was a dodgy bit of a soft penalty, but we'll see. Well, that's what it is now. They scored 2 more goals after that, so it was all done anyhow. But yeah, I think if it had been the other way, if it had been at Stoke, I probably would have had more confidence that Stoke would have got something out of the game because, well, let's put it this way: Brian Clough was talking 30 or 40 years ago about football shouldn't be played in the air, and he was talking about Stoke City's ground. So, but there you go. Yeah, let's be honest. Wolverhampton Wanderers, we've with the investment, whilst it's increased from previous seasons, going up against a Burnley team that had spent probably best part of £1 million, if not £2 million on their team, should never be finishing 1 point behind Burnley with a better goal difference. We should have been, fighting rugby for a lot longer for that second spot. The fact we took it to the last day and we're second because of a very controversial refereeing decision. And I'm not going to be bitter and twisted about it. The fact that we actually had the FA, sort of apology off the FA reffing team because of how bad the decision was, says how bad, gives it all. It's not just a bit of was it offside, was it not? It was a foul on our player, but it was given against us, and therefore we didn't get the goal. But there you go. That's, as I said, not bitter, twisted, and reliant, angry about it still at all.
But equally in that as well, I mean, the reverse fixture was 0-0 as well.
Yeah.
So it was all the way.
Yeah, and we nearly scored last minute in that game as well, which is really sort of what's so galling. We were that close. We'll just say, obviously Halifax had to come to us and get something out of the game because for their survival. But I think we'd gone 1-0 up, and we looked, we were 1-0 up while Burton was still drawing, which was quite entertaining because obviously we're singing "We Are Going Up" or "We're top of the league" or something along those lines. But by that point, Loughborough were already 2-0 up. So by half time, Burnley were up, Halifax were relegated, and the game sort of petered out in a way. No one wanted to sort of overcommit to anything from either side because they knew the season was done, and they didn't want to. Or Halifax knew their season was done, and Wolves had a bigger fish to fry, so therefore will save themselves for the big game on Bank Holiday Monday. But it's been a really interesting year. I think I'm gonna. I know it's not a review show of the whole season, but I will pick out the fact that Middlesbrough and West Brom battled it out for that joint fifth spot, and I think it shows how well Shiv's done at West Brom that they are there. I can be magnanimous even though as a Wolves fan, I can be magnanimous and say how well Shiv's done. But I think Middlesbrough being fifth in their first season back in this league, I think that's going to be a really interesting battle there to see how much more investment they put in as well going forward. And we'll wait and see who else comes up and joins them.
Absolutely that. I know that if Gareth was here, he'd be lauding Liverpool Feds as well, having another good season there, middle of the table, as you mentioned as well. So very good.
Sorry, can I just pick up on Liverpool Feds?
Yeah,
again, Instagram has disabled their Instagram account again. So if you are on social media, please do sort of go onto the Feds account and just give it a like, give it a retweet their message or share their message, etc. Because Feds are, and I know Gareth will bang the drum for Feds, but I'll also bang the drum for Feds because they're an absolute cracking club and do punch well above their weight. And they're being really hard done by. And I think it comes down to the fact that Instagram think it's the Liverpool Feds are trying to rip off Liverpool Football Club. I mean, why anyone would want to be Liverpool Football Club, I don't know. You could be Liverpool Feds instead. Much better football club.
I think Instagram just need to wake up in that one. It's a bit embarrassing for them now. How many times can you keep deleting the same account and giving the same reasoning, like, wake up and smell the coffee, Instagram, if you can. But yes, I think a very good season all told, and for them as well, 10 points clear of the relegation zone. So a very solid foundation for next season. But Halifax last season, Nick, they were given the reprieve. They're going to need another one if they want to stay up again. Or, got to be honest, can't see it coming this season. I think that will be Halifax and Calcer down, and you would imagine, if all things being equal, that will be Halifax into the Division 1 North and Sporting Calcer into Division 1 Midlands, unless, of course, there's some sort of geographical wizardry set to take place. Can't see that occurring on this.
Not with those teams.
Seems fairly safe on that one, but we shall see. You never know what might happen. But like I say, a really good season for the Northern Premier, one that we've enjoyed watching very, very much. And like I say, Burnley and Wolves in a great situation there. So we were going to look at the Southern. I think what we'll do is if we just sort of do the North. and the Midlands, that will sort of take us into it, and then we'll look at the playoffs and how that's going to look. So we'll go into the Division 1 North, which we were obviously just talking about a moment ago. And Division 1 North, a big season in Division 1 North. Huddersfield Town with points deductions, yet still winning their division, which is quite something if you really stop and think about it. 22 games played, 17-1. That is a good little season for Huddersfield Town. I think I'd actually start at the other end of the table over here, if I'm honest with you, because it's one thing to see Blackburn drop, and I know there were some people that were quite disappointed that Blackburn, when they were dropped down out of WSL2 from their voluntary relegation, were allowed to drop into Tier 4, because Reading, obviously, when they left, had to go into Tier 5. Dare I be so bold as to say, it almost sounds like the footballing gods have done that for us a year later. And perhaps that's where they just should have been anyway, to give them the opportunity, much like Reading, to be able to rebuild at the proper fashion and at the proper rate. But much more heartbreakingly is to see one of the originals in terms of women's football, Doncaster Rovers Bells, back into regional football. When you think back over women's football over the years, they're a name that's synonymous with it. It's quite a shame to see them drop back into regional football, isn't it?
It is. I'll just quickly pick up on Blackburn and then come on to Donny. With regards to Blackburn, I think, yeah, you're right. They probably should have gone straight into Div 5 and be done with it. I also think that if the decision had been made earlier, so they could have prepped and started the planning earlier as well and implemented it. Because I think if you look at their season, they did actually steadily get better, and were actually back end of the season starting to actually pick up points and get wins. I mean, whilst they lost to Huddersfield fairly heavily, they were beating Donny. They drew with York. They also beat Chesterley Street. So they would get, and drew with Cheadletown Stingers as well. He finished second in the end. So they were getting some results. So I think season probably would have been better if it run a few more months for them. With regard to Donny, I mean, it's another team that obviously had a reprieve last season. It really does. It says a lot about what's happened with this Donny team. I mean, 3 seasons ago, they were in the Midlands and competing for the title. They've petered out over the last 3 seasons in this Div 1 North. And that's strange, because I think at the time when they moved across, the Midlands was the tougher of the 2 divisions and that they could have been in. This Northern division over that, or the Div 1 North, has been certainly the top end of a really tight, tough division to get it to compete in. So I think it's has shown for them, but I think there's more to it than meets the eye. Other than that, I don't know all the ins and outs, but I know a lot of Donny fans are blaming a guy called Chris Wood, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Donny Rovers Bells, but Chief Operating Officer of Doncaster Rovers Football Club, about how he has managed and treated the whole club as a whole, and certainly churned through managers over the last couple of years. And yeah, just generally sort of never had a really stable footing. I think what really does disappoint me, though, as well with this, is even after last season's reprieve, they've not been able to build back up. But also the press, the sort of the mainstream media haven't picked up on this at all, haven't reported that one of the big teams. And I appreciate the sort of the majority of the mainstream media doesn't even know what FA Women's National League is. So this at tier 4. But Donny Rovers Bells is known, and you would have thought that people would have clocked onto the fact that the Bells are going down and made a story out of it, made an article because there's a story to tell, and gone and done a bit of journalism there. So it is a bit of a shame, and I appreciate that all the editors want to talk about is Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City, Man United, and England, but actually decent journalism should be supported, and therefore they should be, let's call the editors out then, who are not supporting their journalists to go and actually do some proper investigative reporting.
Yeah, I think it's quite sad, as you say, when you start looking at the fact that the Donny were one of the OGs, as I say, in women's football. It's a really big story that they're now, it's not even that they're not fighting up at the highest levels, but that actually they're dropping down into the way lower reaches of the divisions, which is
And they produce some absolute amazing talent. Millie Bright, Beffing, they've all come through that camp as well. And there's others there as well. It's not just so there's they've got their associated with household names as well. So there's a story. So even if people go, who are Donny Rovers Bells? Never heard of them, or Donny Bells as they were. People have heard of Millie Bright. So there's your connection. But no, they seem to be ignored, which is a shame.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It is a shame indeed. But in a happier bit of news for the division, as we say, Huddersfield Town will be going up. They had a ding-dong battle with Cheadle Town Stingers and, to a degree, Leeds United as well. Wythenshawe were certainly up and around for, I would say, probably half to 2/3 of the season before it dropped a little bit for them. And although they finished just 8 points off the top, I think if Gareth was here, as disappointed as he would be as how it ended, I think he would be incredibly proud of how his team have done in their maiden season in the Division 1 North, and an excellent foundation for them to go on and build on next season. You may not be in the division in the Northern Premier next season. It remains to be seen. We'll obviously talk about that a little bit later in the show, but we know that Huddersfield Town are going to be going up. It could be Cheadle Town Stingers. We will reveal who it is they're playing in the playoffs on Saturday in just a moment. But Huddersfield and Cheadle, if you were to look at both of those sides, how would you imagine them doing in the Northern Premier based on all of the teams that you've got around them? Because we've seen teams like Halifax struggle. How do you think these guys might get on?
I think Huddersfield will do better than they did a couple of seasons ago, obviously, where they got relegated, because obviously they're now a bit more attached to the main club. They are now part of that setup, so have a bit more infrastructure and support around them. I think that because of where they are on that M62 corridor, they can pick up people fairly easy, sort of get loan players in from your likes of Liverpool, Man United, Man City, Everton, but also, the Burnley, if Burnley do, or Burnley have obviously gone up, so anyone who drops away from Burnley might well, but wants to stay in the region, might well come across the Huddersfield because it's not that far away. I think Cheadle, if they go up, will struggle more because they don't have the infrastructure supporting them behind there. And I think they'll be more competing with your Loughboroughs, your Hulls at that bottom end of the table, as more of your independent club. One thing I would say is if anyone ever does get a chance to go to watch a game at Huddersfield, don't go if they're playing at the main stadium. Go when they're playing at the Stafflex Arena, whatever it's called, their home ground, because it is one of the most picturesque grounds in the Women's National League. You sit in the stand and you look out across the Pennine Hills, and it is a lovely view because it's sort of fringed in with. You go up through a little woodland and you park up and you walk out, and then literally just get this view across the Pennines. You sit there in the stand, and if the football's pretty dire, then at least the view's decent. So Huddersfield's, well, it will be interesting. Obviously, when you go back to the sort of first season after COVID, or that second season of COVID, Huddersfield were top of the league at the time and were the team that was meant to be going up, but didn't go up because they could not afford it at the time. And obviously since then, sort of slowly petered away and dropped into Tier 4 a couple of seasons ago, and obviously rebuilt and have come back again. So I think it's, but that's tied in. That rebuild is tied in with the investment from the women's team. I think that final season they were in Tier 3. I think it was really touch and go whether they were actually going to continue at that point as well. Certainly, when you talk to the fans up at the ground, there was concern there. Obviously, the main club's got involved and has actually helped rebuild it. So this is really good to see them back up in Tier 3, pushing forward. I have to say, I hope I don't have to visit them again. Not because it's not a great ground, because it is, but I just don't particularly want to be in Tier 3 anymore. So there you go. Cheadle would be a new ground, though. And that would be that is the best club in South Manchester, of course.
But Cheadle have done, I think, incredibly well this season, and to find themselves in second position is quite something. And Leeds United, I think, will be quite annoyed that they've not managed to finish above them.
Cheadle second in 2 consecutive seasons, and obviously they only missed out on last season on the title on goal difference. So again, and they got 51 points last season to be on 49, so within spitting. So really consistent performance there as well from Cheadle. I think they'll be cursing the drop points to Blackburn, because I think that probably they would have lost out again on goal difference, but if they got picked up a win there, but that would be it would have been certainly again even tighter, especially with Huddersfield having had that points deduction.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, yeah, I think you've got Cheadle, Leeds, and Wythenshawe, who will all be looking to kick on next season. Very, very interesting to see how Halifax will do once they parachute into this division. Will they come back up? Will they not? That's what next season shows will be focusing on. But we did mention that Cheadle Town Stingers will be in a playoffs. That playoff is going to be against the mighty Boldmere St Michael's. They were the runners-up. We spoke last week about Peterborough United being the champions. It looked likely all the way through the last few weeks that it would be Boldmere that would just pit Leafield to the post, and that was exactly how it turned out. Peterborough finishing top. Boldmere will be the Saturday match up at Burton as they play Cheadle Town Stingers. So a very interesting little playoff there to see who it is who is going to make it into the Northern Premier. So really, really big conversations to be had around there. Leafield Athletic will be, I think, kicking themselves as well, if I'm honest with you. The fact that they've come so close. I saw that Tash Teagle put out a really good post, as she always does at the end of the season. I know that she's incredibly proud of what the women have achieved at Leafield Athletic. I think, again, when you're just 2 points off it's one of those where any manager will be going to bed at night thinking, we could have just got the draw there or the win there. Would have started to make those sort of changes. And there's all those games, I remember it from last season with Borough. So that is a bit of a shame for Leafield Athletic, but they were the three sides that were contesting the top of the division. Lincoln United have pretty much been down since day one. They've not really been able to do much. They've not been upwardly mobile in any way, shape, form, or fashion, and so that will be then back down into Tier 5, and it may be some time until we see them again, until they get themselves sorted out, because there are some issues, as we know, around Lincoln. But Stourbridge were certainly fighting. Kidderminster Harriers were fighting. Sutton Coldfield Town were fighting. Notts County even were fighting. There was a lot of opportunity for who would go down here. But again, Nick, I think from our conversations that we were having week in, week out on this channel, it looked, and it has been the case, that Stourbridge have been below the dotted line for the vast majority of the end of this season. And after what I think, if John was here again, he would say has been a bit of a fairy tale, really, in terms of Stourbridge's rise up into the WNL, almost as quickly as it went up. It's gone the other way around, and that's a real shame that, again, a side that looked like it was having a little bit of investment, looked like it was having a bit of a golden age, has again sort of had that frozen effectively, and as a result, naturally, it means they've been left behind a little bit. So we look at this Midlands division. What do you think of that? And when you think of Boldmere and Cheadle, who do you think is going to win it? Because again, that's two very interesting sides, neither of which are really very well known amongst people that don't watch women's football regularly at this level.
Yeah, I mean, just to start off with Leafield, I think, obviously what you said about Tash is the absolute legend of a manager. I mean, she played for some dodgy football clubs in her time, and I'll say that about her previous clubs, Stoke and West Brom. Really shocking choice of clubs there, Tash, but there we go. I think Leafield, you look at that, they've improved on last season. They were on 48 points last season, so they've picked up 4 more points on last season. So that's an improvement. So it's not just finishing third, which was also improvement in league positioning. It's actually it's points on the board as well. And I think if I was to look at it, I would also be thinking, do Leafield have the resources, the infrastructure, etc., to go up and compete in Tier 3? Realistically, probably not. So actually, whilst, yes, it'll be annoying and be frustrating, as you say, for Tash to sit there and go, what if here, what if there, especially the games against Boldmere, which points were dropped at. I think actually with hindsight, I think they'll sit back in the summer and go, actually, it probably wasn't a bad thing to finish third in this division, and therefore see where we go next season. That'd be my gut feeling. At some point, you've also got to acknowledge your own sort of the ceiling and capacity of your club, which takes us quite nicely to Stourbridge in that sense. I think the footballing side had more ambition than the administrative side of that club. I think I think that's a polite way of saying it, that the manager and the coaches and the players all wanted to keep pushing, but the chair and vice chair were sort of suddenly a bit shocked about what success looked like in the women's game. I hope that, because obviously Stourbridge were, their back-to-back promotions were, and sort of the whole setup there, not just sort of the promotions, but also the fans, the relationship between the manager and the manager, fans and players, the whole sort of building a community around that club. The songs, the actual general sort of attendance levels, etc., for a tier 5 or tier 6, tier 5, and then tier 4 and tier 3 club were really sort of, especially for a small club, were really sort of bang on. And I think there were credit to that club. And I'm not saying that because John's not here and blow smoke up his arse, but pardon the English, but he was part and parcel of that. So I'd hope that Stourbridge are able to rebuild under the manager, keep the whole of those players a couple of seasons in tier 5, and they could well be pushing back up to tier 4 again. But they need that continuity of support from the ownership, from the chair and vice chair. Now they need to stabilise and go again. The club actually I want to pick out in this division is not one that you've mentioned there, Barrett, but Worcester finished 10th last season, were well 10th as well, so they were on 13 points when Lincoln United were on 22, and so we're comfortably 10th, but they're now sitting 5th, 35 points, won the Worcestershire County Cup, really sort of doing good things on and off the pitch. They've had 3 of our youngsters on loan there, who've really gained valuable minutes, and that's helped their development, but also helped push Worcester. And it's obviously it's only 3 players out of a squad of 20 odd, but that's still having that good experience around them. So I think huge sort of benefit there, and I think we can't finish off on the Midlands without doffing our cap to the one, the only Andy Fisher, who's retired, taking a step back from the game, leaving Kiddie now. And those who know John will know how much he raves about Andy. I'm no Kiddie or Stourbridge fan, but I respect how much he's done for the women's game. For, 6 seasons or so, maybe more than that, probably in the game. And achieved so much, helped so many players, helped so many coaches, and really just driven the game on. Huge amount of respect for the guy, and I hope he's not away from the game for too long, because the game needs people like Andy Fisher. So enjoy the retirement, but please don't make it too long, Andy.
Absolutely that. A lot of people thinking and hoping that will be like when wrestlers retire, and then 3 years later, look at that, they're wrestling for another company. Be very interesting and good to see him come back. And nice that you touched on Worcester. Connor always used to tell me, he's been to Worcester a few times, how their ground just is like way bigger, way more spacious, and way more modern than you perhaps would expect for a side at this level. So who knows? You mentioned possibly go and see Huddersfield. Maybe this is also a good place to go and visit. So there we are. That is
Six Ways Stadium in Worcester. That's their ground, and yes, it is probably the nicest stadium in the league there. I didn't tell you who I thought would win out of Boldmere and Cheadle, and my views on Boldmere and how they'll do in this league. Boldmere to beat Cheadle. There you go. That's my prediction. And I think Boldmere will. It will depend who goes up and what happens around sort of the likes of Blues and going out of WSL 2 and if Wolves go up, how many players they pick up, etc. Because obviously, if Wolves go up, we'll lose players who might well fancy the opportunity going to Boldmere, and Blues. If Blues go up, they'll lose some of their WSL2 players. Not so much their WSL2 players, but their WSL academy players will leave and go to Boldmere, I reckon, and get some minutes there. So there you go.
Well, there we go. That has absolutely answered that question. Of course, it will be Sporting Causa who will likely drop into this division. And be very interesting to see how they get on. But again, that is a next season discussion. We're about to move into the Southern Premier. I'm just going to throw that up on the screen now. No major surprises to the champions, seeing as how we told you who they were a week or two ago. But we have managed to get a child to bed, I understand, because Stu is now with us. So let's just throw him back on. Not looking too tired, which is great news there. Stu, how are you doing, sir? Welcome to the show.
I am very, very well in the midst of wedding planning. Our wedding is on Sunday, and it definitely doesn't clash with anything very important to me, which maybe we'll touch on later.
We'll get there, Stu. We'll get there.
And just proves that we're not the same person, by the way, that we're both here together.
Yes. This is a awful woeful first. We have not managed to have these two people on the same show at the same time. Some people were convinced they were indeed the same person. And this definitely dispels that rumour, unless, of course, there is a paid actor somewhere within this. But we ain't
Wow.
So I'm not paying anyone. It just depends on if they are. Right, Southern Premier. So some really big things happened in this division throughout the year. But as we can see, it is Watford who have, a bit like in the Northern Prem, won it just by a point. But that point is more than enough. And Plymouth Argyle will be the side who will be facing the mighty Wolverhampton Wanderers on Monday, Bank Holiday Monday no less, for a spot in the WSL2. But I'm going to start again at the bottom here, lads, because what a day this was. We were sat on the coach back from Wroxham, fervently trying to look to see what was going on in this division, because Gwalia were obviously still on full time in 10th position. And it was a case of trying to work out what was going on, because then Wimbledon tweeted that even though they had not got the requisite points, they had managed to stay up. And of course, Gwalia, in a cruel tale of events, you can see just here, have finished on exactly the same number of points and exactly the same goal difference. It is indeed goals scored that has put Gwalia down, which, I mean, let's be honest, that is a bit of a sickener if you're going to go down somewhere, and it is just because of that. So, Stu, lovely to have you back on the show. Talk to us a little bit about the Southern Prem, because that has been one hell of a ride this season.
You're right. It is very harsh on Gwalia. I guess you phrased it really well, actually. They went down on goals scored, and what do you have to do to win football games? Score goals. So if you don't score enough goals, you don't win enough games. You don't score enough goals, you go down on goals scored, harshly enough. But you're right. It is a really, really good end to the season when you look at the sort of 5 teams down the bottom. One of the criticisms I've levied to a lot of National League divisions is that quite often you might have two, maybe 3 teams at most that are just marooned at the bottom, and it's normally done and dusted in many divisions. Maybe there were normally a few Billerickies sort of floating around, and then there's not really much of a relegation dogfight. But here there really has been, and I would probably say that Exeter would probably been having a bit of uncomfortable, sitting uncomfortably. Had their season gone on for a little bit longer, or I think from their perspective, I think I probably expected a little bit more of them this season, if I'm brutally honest, because they were a fiercely competitive side, a well-run team. So I think they need to. They've got a big summer ahead. But looking down below, Cheltenham #Wimbledon. all of them, we're going to have some big questions in the summer. Obviously, Wimbledon, Kev Foster, who's been a fantastic servant for that club, will be really pleased that he's given his predecessor, what's the right word? His the incoming manager, let's say, successor. That's the one. The incoming manager, a good base to build from. I don't really want to try and talk too much about next season, but that, I think the Southern Prem is going to be a lot stronger, probably the strongest it's ever been next season, with the teams that are likely to come up. There's not really too much to say. Gwalia, unfortunately, needed to score a few more goals.
It wasn't many though either, Stu. There was 2 goals difference between the two of them. 2 goals scored difference. 48 for Wimbledon, 46 for Gwalia. I did look just to see what the difference was. It was really close.
That was the goals against. Goals scored was 30 and 20.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, read it the wrong way around. Yeah, you're right.
Even that way, still just 2 goals. It's incredibly tight.
Yeah.
But isn't that great? Isn't that great that we've got that level of drama and things to talk about? I guess the real crying shame is
strikers struggling. They're going to be going to bed thinking, if only that one had got in.
Yeah. But I think the real shame is that there wasn't really anywhere to follow it. It was almost like if a football team has a relegation dogfight in the woods and no one's there to see it, does anyone know about it? And that's probably a bit of a crying shame, to be honest. And maybe that's the thing for us next year. We all need to try and sit down on here, and we'll have the Twitter feed on one, and sort of maybe trying to figure out our spreadsheets on the other. Maybe we'll get Chris Gadsby involved, but that's the sort of the big shame of it, really. But it's a fantastic advert for the division, and it really makes me excited for next season, where it's going to be really, really. You throw Fulham in that mix, Swindon in that mix, Norwich City or Moneyfield in that mix. I think that's going to be really good, and Portsmouth coming down as well.
Yeah, staying in that division.
Yeah, it's going to be a really difficult league to get out of. I think.
I've already said they'll be absolutely mental league. That league, mental.
Historically, I've often said that the Northern Prem is probably the stronger of the two. But I think next year, It could be a power shift. The Southern powerhouses.
I mean, if Burnley and Wolves both go up, realistically, it's rugby's league to win next season in the North. Maybe if Stoke might put a little bit more money into it, but realistically, it's rugby's. Whereas the Southern pick anyone from 2nd down to 7th, realistically, because I know you obviously commented about Exeter, but they had huge injury issues, etc., which had their impact. Chuck Portsmouth in, chuck Fulham, chuck Swindon, plus, as you say, one of them money's in Norwich, and then you're into it. I think I've commented elsewhere that AFC and Wimbledon and Cheltenham are already your 3 favourites for that relegation battle before you even finish this season. It's that tight. That league's going to be that tight next season.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's going to be a really, really exciting season for us next season. But I've got to.
Can I come in and tell you who my dark horses will be?
Go on.
Yeah.
Oxford United. If you were to look at their record after Liam Gilbert came back, they've just climbed up that division, and they'll be kicking themselves that they didn't start the season with him, because he's ready. He's got a fantastic network. He's a lovely coach. I think they're going to be in and about, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Portsmouth squad. As many regular viewers will know, that's where I'm based. And a lot of the talk amongst the fans is, will they retain their semi-pro or pro status? So, it'll be interesting.
Just quickly on sort of 2 of those points there, just Bournemouth as well. I think there's due to be an exodus from what I hear about from Bournemouth players as well. So there's going to be, if there's a churn there, that'd be interesting, because obviously they sort of won the cup and then sort of petered out. But I did see rumours, and it is very much rumours. I will very much caveat it with rumours on social media that Watford are supposedly talking about not accepting their place. I've talked to a couple of people who categorically deny that. Categorically correct me on that it's just rumours, people talking for the sake of talking. But if that also does happen, that would be it could have a real repercussions of that Watford team as well.
Could do. I mean, Watford, no strangers to WSL2. Obviously, they've been there before. So again, I've not heard the things that you're hearing there, Nick. I hear only positivity from the Watford camp in that respect. So we shall see where
I do think that there is something in the AFC Bournemouth camp probably not being a happy camp. You look at the way that they dropped off towards the end of the season. I would have put all three of our mortgages on them going up, and probably doing it without dropping any points. To be honest, they were that good. So I probably think there's something in it, and it wouldn't surprise me if there are big changes there. They've got a very good squad. They have just given the manager a 2-year contract. So therefore, like, it's something's got to give. Do they back the manager and risk their season unraveling next year, or do they back the players and then try and bring a new boss in? I don't know. But yeah, there's certainly something worrying in their drop off, because it should have been their division for me, and I think that Fulham will come in and they will be looking at all of they're not daft. They look around and see who's doing really well in and around them, and they'll think, who could we pick off and who can strengthen our position? And it wouldn't surprise me if they'll be on the phone to Sophie Quirk, maybe a couple of the other Bournemouth players. They've got fantastic resources at Fulham. They are building slowly and organically, but they are a WSL2 team in waiting. It's a case of when, if not, well, when, not if.
Yeah.
If not when.
When, not if.
Massively pushing themselves up towards that position. You are right, and they will 100% be a side to watch next season. It's time for the $1 million question, guys. I'm going to ask Nick last, although I'm sure I know what his answer is going to be. But Plymouth and Wolves, who do you see being the third side to go up into the Championship?
My head and heart say different things.
Okay.
My heart will always go for the underdog when my teams aren't involved. So it would be a great story to see Plymouth go up. But I also think that it would be a case of running before they're walking, and therefore I'd like to see a team that deserves to be in there, and that I think is probably more well equipped to have a good old bash at it. So yeah, I'd like to see Wolves go up. I'd like to see Macca get the chance to manage at that level. They've been so close on so many occasions that I think it would be only fair and just that they get up there. But it's football, and Plymouth's form this season has been absolutely fantastic, given that they used to be hanging around that little group of Cheltenham hashtag and Wimbledon in and around the bottom. Quite often they used to occupy the relegation zones until Christmas, but come the second half of the season they will always find their form and shoot up the league. So yeah, we shall see.
I think, I mean, what was it last season? Plymouth finished 10th, changed their manager and brought in Marie Hourihan. Nearly brought in Macca as well, if you believe the rumours. But there you go. That's different. That's a story for another day. But Marie Hourihan.
I thought it was RAF and not Navy.
There's still that naval state. There's still RAF stations down that way somewhere. Odium's not that far away. But no, he. But I think Marie Hourihan has done an absolutely amazing job at Plymouth, and we will get Mac, and she was there watching us beat Stoke a few weeks ago. Mac will go in with his eyes wide open on that one. They're not, and we played them in the pre-season game as well, and they went with the same team that we played them and beat them pre-season down at home park. It's going to be a tight game. It's going to be a tough game. Obviously, they beat Burnley in the cup semi-final, which was it was a shame that we didn't get to play them then. And I think it's going to be a really interesting battle. It's going to be tough. I'm not anticipating an easy walkover. My head and heart says 1-0 Wolves. I've got a sneaky suspicion it'll be one of the players who unfortunately will eventually leave the club at the end of the season if we do get promoted, simply because they it's not cost effective for them, and not for them to stay with us and go full time with us, because their careers they earn more money with their careers elsewhere, who will give us that goal, and that'll be their final leaving present to us as fans. So there we go. That's my prediction. 1-0.
I think it's going to be very interesting. Whatever happens in that playoff, I think for me, the biggest thing about it isn't it nice that it is the two runners-up that are playing off to get into the WSL2. It's been good that we've been able to get the winners of each division into it, and now to be in a position where the playoffs are also going to decide who that third team is, and it being the runners-up, I think is a really good thing. I agreed with Stu, and I said this to Nick backstage. I think, yes, Wolves as well. Very much for me, a side who have been there and thereabouts many, many times. And yes, I think the time is around about right for them to have a crack at the WSL2. So that is my thoughts on it too. Right, Tier 4. We're going to go to the Southeast, which was, to be fair, something that we had already sorted out when we looked at this last week. So there's not really a huge amount to go on about, really, if I'm honest with you, in this particular segment. But we will just run through it again. Fulham, who we were just talking about, superb season from them, an invincible season. There's been a few of these around across the various divisions that we've been looking at. And for Fulham, 20 wins, 2 draws. Absolutely nailed it. 7 points clear of their nearest rivals, Norwich City. And the fact that 6 of those points difference are there because Fulham beat them twice, which at the time were Norwich's only 2 defeats. There was an additional one eventually. We knew the 2 sides that were going to be going down were Sudbury and Cheshire United, who really have not had much of an opportunity to get out of the drop zone. Those will be the sides that go down. We know we've got Cambridge United, who are very, very close, Dulwich Hamlet, and even Milton Keynes Dons and Luton Town in their first season there, doing incredibly well to get a mid-table finish. You've got to be able to really go at this division, Stu, I think, when you come up into it. Otherwise, you could find yourself sort of stuck. I mean, we talk about Cambridge United. For me, they've just been in this division ever since I care to remember. They've never really been any higher. They've never really been any lower. They're just here. And that can be an incredibly difficult cycle to get out of. It will be interesting to see how the teams get on. Billericay, as we mentioned, are going to be one of the sides to come down. And we saw Milton Keynes Dons in a very similar situation last season. They seem to have managed to stem the bleeding. Billericay would not want to be doing what Kings Lynn did, for example, in the Eastern region, where they went down and then went down again into Tier 7. So, yeah, I think there's not a huge amount to add on this one, Stu, but if there is, I mean, you spoke last week, so is there anything you would like to add on this division before we move over?
Well, I think one of the things that haven't helped Cambridge would be the departure of Sarah Wiltshire, to be honest. I don't know what's she been doing since she left. I haven't heard too much.
I can tell you, mate, not a clue.
But yeah, you are right. It's it goes back to what we said before, like that. You look at the 2 teams down the bottom, that was done and dusted a long time ago. So there wasn't really a relegation dogfight there. However, you look at that little cluster of teams between Actonians down to Cambridge United. Isn't it great to see it competitive and a really good record between those clubs? And that's what we want to see. That hopefully in sort of 4 or 5 years, we'll then see not just competitive, but like just a raise in standards. And it will be, hopefully we'll have like a top 6, top 7. I don't know what wouldn't it be great if there was 4 or 5 clubs that could win the league going into the last couple of game weeks? But yeah, I think Queen's Park Rangers have probably played their last game in that division. I can see them being moved over to the Western Division next year, depending on how things go. They are, I think, by far the closest. Dulwich Hamlet still a little bit further. But I think Chatham Town was my story of the year, to be honest. They're managed by the fantastic manager and Keith Boanis. Really good story in the FA Cup. They've been picking up local awards. Really nice little ground, really nice little club. they've obviously got a little bit of a ceiling because when you look at, they're competing with Norwich City and Fulham, and you look at all the money involved in those clubs, they can only dream of. But then they've done it over clubs such as Queen's Park Rangers, Luton Town, Milton Keynes Dons, Cambridge United, recognised Football League clubs. So yeah, it's great to see. I would really like to see Chatham be able to build on their FA Cup run, maybe invest some of that money in a few more legs to go in the squad. And it'd be great to see them really have a proper title bid next season.
Absolutely. I think you could be quite right as well with what you say there, because you think about, if Norwich were the side to end up going up, you'd have a very similar Northern Prem position, I think, here, where you've kind of got actually just a bunch of teams. With Billericay coming down, you'd wonder whether or not they'd be able to rebound or not. You've got Stevenage, potentially Brentford or Dartford to be coming up as well. It's very much one of those where it could well be the best season to have a go at it. But as we will see, when we move on to the next division, it is by no means done and dusted that Norwich will be the side to go up, because I'm sorry to do this to you now, Stu, but we know that we have to. Nick's already had his plaster ripped off earlier, but I did say at the very beginning of the show that this was heartbreaking, really. We will throw it out there. Because here we can see, and I say heartbreaking, let me be very clear. Number one, Swindon is, of course, the land of my birth. I've made no secret of that. And seeing them at the top of a division, it does make my heart sing a little bit. That is a very nice thing to see. But when I saw the score, the very first thing that I did was to text you and go, oh my God, that's horrible. And it is horrible. We will look at the bottom two very quickly. Portishead Town and Worthing will be dropping down into Tier 5. That was, I think, done and dusted last week as well. The key thing was always going to be the top of the table clash between Swindon Town and Moneyfields at Moneyfields. And anything could have happened. Moneyfields had the point advantage. Stu, I will let you take over the storytelling, but my understanding is that it was Moneyfield where literally, if Clive Tildesley had been doing the commentary, he may have put the words "name on the trophy." Off you go.
Let's not talk about that just yet. Let's talk about the bottom, as you said. Again, it just reiterates my point that wasn't it great to have a bit of a relegation dogfight in the Southern Prem, because there was nothing here. That was all done and dusted weeks ago, to be honest with you, and it was only a case of whether would anyone be worse than Portishead. And I don't say that as a disrespectful to Portishead. They came down to Moneyfields and we only got away with a 1-0 win with a late penalty, a very, very late penalty. So there's obviously really good determination there. And I've said it before, those down in the southwest have a real trouble recruiting because there are just less players. So they've always got that challenge to really make a dent, which is why Marine Academy will be over the moon to have secured their place in the division for the next season. But there is there's not a huge difference between a lot of the clubs from sort of 5th down in that division. So again, if there can be some shrewd recruiting over the summer by a lot of those clubs, retaining the existing squads, then yeah, all of them might fancy their chances to push Bristol and Bridgewater up at the top. Ascot United would be one club that I'd say keep an eye out for. They're a really good young side. They recruited from AFC Bournemouth's development side last year. So if they can get a few more older heads, maybe get someone that can get them sort of 25 goals plus next year, then I would certainly say that they could make a dent towards the top. Maidenhead's form has been, they've just got stronger and stronger under Dave Kitson, so keep an eye on them. Bristol Rovers have sort of fallen away somewhat after the departure of Meg Jarvis. They also began the season with Aaron Bloomfield in their ranks, so that was a lot of goals that they lost towards the second half of the season. But they're still a competitive side and a draw for that area. Also with a good relationship with Bristol City, so it's not uncommon to see some of their academy players coming over. And who knows, maybe they could strengthen and have a big push next year. Bridgewater, another club that struggled at the start of the season, but they've shown that actually they've they have got the ability there within the squad. So I think they will be very keen to build on their second half of the season. And yeah, that's about it. I think there wasn't really much else to talk about. I jest. So for those that weren't aware, going into the final game of the season, Moneyfields were top of the division by 1 point after the aforementioned Bridgewater United came away with a 1-0 win against Swindon Town. So the mission was very simple: a win or a draw for my Moneyfields team, and we get promoted as champions. A defeat, then we don't, basically. The story of the game itself, it probably depends who you talk to. In brutal honesty, Moneyfields fans will think that they had the better of the chances over the course of the whole game and the better of the general play. But then maybe Swindon Town will argue that, well, they defended really well when they took their chances when they came to them. So I think it's one of those. I think if it was just a normal league game and it came away as a draw, I don't think either team would be too unhappy. We had 15 minutes of added time at the end. No one had a clue what was going on. I didn't even realise that. So for those that weren't aware, it was a 2-1 win to Swindon that got them in that position. But the goal we pulled back was in the would have been the 100th minute. And it felt like those last 5 minutes before the final whistle, it felt like there was another 10 minutes or so when you were actually there. But I think Moneyfields, we had the better of the play for the first half an hour. Swindon came back into it. Taylor McDonald scored a fantastically well-struck goal just before half-time. The second half was a real difficult one to watch. It wasn't the most. Didn't have anywhere near the sort of like the excitement of the first, with Swindon moving into a bit more of a mid-block. A mid to lower block, whatever the in between there would be. I call it a third block, maybe. I don't know. That obviously made it difficult for Moneyfields, but also from both sides, players were just dropping like flies. And I'm not talking just a little bit of gamesmanship here and there, but we've potentially got someone with a queried ACL. That, bless Beth, she played on for about 10 minutes. Clearly not fit, but she certainly tried her best. So we hope, because she was able to sort of at least hobble around and walk the pitch, that maybe she might be okay. But because of all the injuries and stoppages, it was very hard to build up any momentum, which benefited Swindon. For probably the only chance they had the second half came from a corner, but they scored it. To the delight of their travelling fans, who I must say were fantastic. They brought the drums, they brought the noise, they brought the shirts, and it made for a really good atmosphere and a fantastic advert for the division. At Moneyfields, our previous record attendance was 150, and that was a determining round match against AFC Bournemouth. But for this fixture, we were just shy of 700, and it felt like there was 7,500, to be honest. It was absolutely hustling and bustling with fans of all ages, and it's a weird one. Someone asked me the other day, and I was kind of talking about how I felt, and my role with Moneyfields is working with the media and communications team, and I've got a little part of my role is working with sponsors and working with the community side of the club with a view to building the fan base. And I tell you what, if you'd have said to me, we could get the manager would feel completely differently, but I wear a slightly different hat. But if you'd have said to me that we could have won and gone up, but we'd have done it in front of a crowd of 40 or 50, or we could lose, but we could have 700 people in our stadium on a beautiful sunny spring day, I'll tell you what, it softens the blow somewhat, to be honest with you, because we were just really proud of the players, really proud of the club, and really proud of the community that showed up. From our perspective, it's still a season to be proud of. We've got 10 more points than we have done in our 10 more points than last season, which was also our record points total. excuse me, and scoring 25 more goals than we did the previous season. So we've raised the bar ourselves. Win, lose or draw this weekend. We've seen many a club suffer heartbreak in their promotion bid, but then succeed the following season. Exeter had that when Cardiff City, now Gwalia, had earned promotion. AFC Bournemouth last season lost out on, I think it was 2 points difference in the end, but they were neck and neck, right, pretty much the whole season. And then they got their promotion last year. It just does go to show how tight and how perfect you do have to be. The biggest killer for us as a club is that Ascot, who I mentioned before, I think it was our second league game of the season away at their place. It was a 0-0 draw. And had we come away with a 7-0 win, no one would have batted an eyelid. If someone was there measuring XG, we probably would have had 4-5. And how we didn't score on that, I know our manager Carl said that we could have carried on playing for 3 or 4 days. We were never going to score. But the chances we were created, we were just cutting through them like a hot knife through butter, but we just weren't able to finish. And we privately, a few of us said that could come to bite us in the bum at the end of the season. And frustratingly, it has. But as I said before, you've got to score goals to win the game. We didn't do it on that game, so therefore we didn't win. We didn't win the match. The one thing I will say sort of about Swindon, they put up a fantastic run this season. I think the only points they dropped were in their last 5 or 6 games. But I'm really pleased for Annie Colston, their striker. She's someone that I felt that could play, that should be playing tier 3, and could even be useful for someone in the championship if she was given the resources and the ability to train with the professionals like that. So she's certainly in the right place. They'll have a bit of work to do over the summer. They've got a strong squad, and they fight and they're well organised. But it's a different kettle of fish up in tier 3. You've got to bring the quality as well as along with the fight and organisation. Not saying they can't do it by any stretch of imagination, but as we've touched on earlier, it's going to be really, really competitive up in that division.
Exactly. Yeah, very hard to take as well as you say. But what a ending! I would say probably the best ending. It's ironic, really, as we said, but the best ending has literally come right at the bottom of the Southern Prem and right at the top of the Division 1 Southwest, where the paths might cross. Before we talk about playoffs, which is obviously our final discussion to have, I have just got to ask you, Stu, with Gwalia coming down, if Moneyfields are the side that go up, we just spoke about this in the Southeast, it's not like they're dropping down. They've had a really difficult season. Gwalia, right on the edge of it. Would you imagine, with the teams that are left over, that you would expect Gwalia to be a side that are likely to bounce straight back up? If not,
I'd say the favourites.
How do you see you matching up with them?
So, I think Gwalia would be good. If Moneyfields weren't in the division, Gwalia would be favourites. We've obviously played them in the plate competition, and they're a strong squad. They're probably. I was going to say they are a tier 3 team, but they're not. But they've got the quality in there to compete in that division. So I would put them as favourites. If we don't win the playoff, which obviously we'll talk about, I'm quite confident, given the bond that we have within our squad, that we would be able to retain the players that we have. So therefore, I would probably put us slight favourites. And that's trying to wear my neutrals hat. If Moneyfields, we can get promoted, I tell you what, it'll be a David and Goliath story. Not because of the players, but just because of the sheer resources available to us and the other clubs in and around. When you look at clubs that don't have big Premier League backings in the division, they've still got a pretty good backing or a pretty good pedigree. When you look at the likes of Lewis and Rail Bedford and I'd say hashtag, or there's some question marks over how they're doing behind the scenes at the moment. But we certainly feel that we can compete with that everyone in that division, especially the sort of the bottom half of the division. And we'd see no reason why we shouldn't be aiming for. Carl, the manager, will always aim. He'll aim to win the division. The reality might be that a successful season would be finishing 10th, but it wouldn't be unrealistic for us to be targeting 5th and 6th if we recruited well and we played like we know we can play. I think we've learnt a lot. Previously, I would say that we were probably our own worst enemies. Unforced errors would lead to the dropping of points, but we've bossed most games this season, other than 2. So we've learned and we've kind of fixed that, and we will have learned a hell of a lot through our plate final defeat and penalties, and we'd have learned from the game at Swindon last week, and we'll learn a lot from the Norwich game. The nice thing about going into this playoff is that we're going in as underdogs, and maybe that's a role that we'll probably relish that a little bit more than being in the favourable position, perhaps.
Okay, well, it'll be very interesting to see. Nick, I'm going to throw you in at this point. Stu's been able to have a little go at what he thinks is going to be the score between Wolves and Plymouth. It's time for you to remember that TV show, Get Your Own Back. What do you reckon? Moneyfields and Norwich. How do you see it panning out?
I think it's going to be a really interesting game. It's probably the one of the parking the Wolves one, obviously. So looking at the other 2 games is the one that actually most interesting excites me, because I think they're going to be most eagerly contested between the 2 teams. That's no disrespect to Cheadle and Boldmere. I just think this one's going to be much more interesting of a contest. I think, Stu's right. Moneyfields are the underdogs. Norwich have got the investment. They've got they're putting a huge amount of money and effort into that club there and that team there. They're really stepping up. They've got use of the Nest facility, which is absolutely amazing facility. And obviously, I know Money's have got their brand new facility as well. But I think it's that everything that goes with having that facility that the Nest gives you and the access that gives you. So you would.
Sorry to interrupt, Nick, but we actually went down there for a pre-season tour, so we had a few training sessions and a match there ourselves. So it's a great facility.
It is. My daughter played there for Posh Development a few months ago. So so it is amazing setup there. It is. On my head says Norwich are favourites, and I agree with Stu that the Money's are the underdogs. Noting that the team didn't give him an early wedding present on last week, they owe him a wedding present this week. So I hope Money's do the business and and Stu could be toasting 2 happy occasions on Sunday. So fingers
absolutely
crossed.
Yeah. Absolutely. So full disclosure for everyone. The playoff game kicks off at 1 p.m. As does my wedding ceremony. So I have said to the team, win, lose or draw, get the coach to stop by on the way back.
Well, definitely. Sure, there'll be a couple of bottles of champagne. Hopefully, there'll be a couple of bottles of champagne with yours and your better half's name on it, and to help celebrate the occasion.
Exactly.
Well.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So Stu, what do you reckon?
Well, I'm only going to back my team. But I back my team. I say we've got it in us to win. We can upset them, but it depends what Norwich City do on the day. Depends what we do on the day. It's another cup final.
Yeah.
It's fair. Stevenage played them, as you know, earlier on in the season in the FA Cup. Norwich are a side that fought right until the very end. They played incredibly good football, but if you match them, and you guys have got the best goal difference in your league, they absolutely can be got at. We scored 3 past them. I am sure that you have the ability as well to do so. I'm in a very similar situation to the rest of you in that respect. My heart completely wants Moneyfields to win this, because obviously I know you guys, you're on the show regularly, and I completely want you to. But selfishly, I'd also like Norwich to go up, because that would make the South East Division just a slightly nicer place to go and visit next year. But yes, I think either way, I will not be too disappointed. But the fact it's your wedding day, Stu, I want that coach to be turning up, and for that to be an absolute barnstorming wedding day that you will never forget. So fingers crossed, Moneyfields will cross the line, and we will have a happy panel with everybody going up, with the exception of Gareth and John, which is probably why they're not here today. Really good. I've got one last question for you, Stu, I suppose, because you wasn't here. I did ask Nick his thoughts on the Boldmere and Cheadletown Stingers. Have you got any idea, any thoughts as to who you think might win that playoff match on Saturday?
No, but having met and seen Cheadle in the plate final, they were very gracious as to send us a message of support on the day. So I'll be rooting for Cheadle.
There we go. And that answers that question. And with that, brings down the curtain on
Barry. So
that does not bring down the curtain. Somebody stuck their head back through it. Nick.
Yeah, can I just chat about the actual cup final organisation of the setup and the
as long as you don't do anything that requires me to get lawyers involved, you can do whatever you like.
Oh no, it's fine, mate. I'm just going to call out. I'd like, because obviously you're in this situation as well with us, Stu, how you think the organisation sales of tickets and things like that. And I'm going to be, I'll stick my neck out on the line and say my piece. I think it's been poorly administered. I think they could have. I appreciate obviously they wanted to get tickets out on sale early because some divisions like Southern was sorted fairly quickly, but others went down to the very last day. I think they could have planned for those that happening a lot quicker. And I'm going to take this. I'll take the tier 3 as the example here. They had opened the same 3 blocks as they've done for the other two playoff games, and then literally just dumped everyone into those blocks rather than saying, right, that's going to be the southern side there, that's the northern side there. Whoever can buy it, if you want to be supporting the northern team, go into there. It doesn't matter which the northern team is. You want to support the southern team, you go in there. And then they've slowly added blocks in rather than sort of going, right, now we're going to segregate, and they're not segregating fans, so therefore you're going to have fans all mixed in together, and they're insisting on 100% reserved seating. So therefore you could well find that you've got Wolves fans sat either side of Plymouth fans, and I'm going to say we'll be hopefully celebrating at the end, and you've got Plymouth fans who are getting a bit upset about it all, and emotions are going to be high, and you think it could have been better done. It just should have been better done. I
must admit, I didn't know that it was strictly reserved seating. I was going to say, cutting them a little bit of slack, people can just kind of sit where they want, like in the cinema. If that, after the time, me and the little one will say, oh, is this our seat? So I'm like, well, it's one of these few. We'll sit here and we'll wait for someone to move us on if we need to. But yeah, that seems to be a huge own goal. Although I will say, from my experience of the plate, the league were fantastic. It was a brilliant event, really well run, really well organised, and they did an absolute credit. For someone that's based in the south, I think it's a nightmare that we have to go up north. I think we could probably.
It's not north, it's Midlands.
Wow, it's north for us, isn't it?
It's north for you. I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Watford Gap is too far as we're concerned.
Yeah. So it's a shame that it's all in one place, but I also understand from a logistical perspective from one day to the next, they can't. They've got everything all in there in one place. They can get one hotel where they can stay for 3 or 4 days. So I kind of get that, but yeah, I do think it's a bit of an own goal. From what I hear, it's not the best stadium, so it's not really fitting. I remember my first experience of one of the cup finals day. Well, I guess that was where we first met. The cup finals day at Sutton Goldfield. Fantastic. Solihull Moors. Yes, sorry, that's right. Yeah. And it was a fantastic stadium. Again, really good event. And I think if you had a double header between the plate and the League Cup final, and that was a great stadium. That was a really nice little stadium. And I must admit, I thought Arbor Park, where we had the plate final, nice ground, awful pitch. I think that pitch must constantly been in use, because that artificial grass was flat as anything. I do believe that they might be ripping it up over the summer to relay it, but yeah, it wasn't good from a pitch perspective. But I also know that they do have a lot of problems getting grounds to necessarily volunteer to be used, and so they can't always sort of pick and choose. But
I
go on.
I was going to say, when we knew it was going to be in one location before we knew the venue, and we knew roughly what day it was, I did do a sort of quick skim through because it knew it wasn't going to be a Premier League ground, so ruled those all out. Then rule out any teams that were sort of at home, any of those that weekend. You did narrow it down, and then you sort of go, right, logistically, you could have at that point, I think Durham Cecil were out of it, but you'd have a fairly northern team. Burnley could still be in it. And it's like, where's the fairly central for everyone? But yeah, Burton's ground is shocking. Not so much the ground. The ground's okay. It's the pitch is absolutely atrocious. We played there a couple of seasons ago in a County Cup final. It was not a choice of County Cup final. Let's not even get into that one for this year. But it was absolutely shocking pitch then. It's better this year. It actually looks like it's got some grass. But when we played in the County Cup final there, it was a third sand. This year it's got at least 2/3 grass, 3/4 grass. But talking to somebody who was there for the Exeter game, as it was, Exeter Burton game, he said it didn't look great. So it's not going to be the best pitch to play on, which might suit. If you don't play, if you don't want to play, put the ball on the ground and play, it might suit you. But it's
do you think the ground's too big?
No, I don't. To be fair, I think it's not a bad size. I think as long as you put the cameras in the right position. I think the issue is you've having to find somewhere that could host. I think I mentioned this in the green room. Wolves and Plymouth combined attendance in the last home game was 2,000. So that's that whole main stand full, basically. So I think you've got the capacity to expect to bring in the sort of the those who will come for the occasion. I think you probably could have got away with someone slightly smaller, but I don't know. I don't know what Burton's ground is.
The reason I bring that up is so at Moneyfields, we know that our capacity is something like around 1,000 to run a game comfortably. I don't know what the sort of health and safety regulations would say our official capacity is, but it was full, and it was standing room only around the pitch. And in the seating as well. To be honest, you almost had to kind of save your seat with your jacket or something if you wanted to get up and leave, because there was that many people. And maybe that would have been better. Maybe somewhere like a King's Meadow, just fill up a small ground. I don't know.
I mean,
maybe
it's only 6,912 capacity, Burton. So it's not a big ground. It's only just bigger than Telford, so in that sense. And we had 800, just over 800 at the weekend, and you could feel that felt noisy and loud at the time. So I think you get 1,000, 2,000 in there, then it will do well. I'm trying to remember Stockport's. We had 2014 was at that ground at Edge of the Park. Back in the day, when it was Southampton versus Wolves, and I think that was. I think what capacity theirs is. Must be 10. That's 11,000. So that felt okay. I wouldn't go much bigger than what it is, but it's pick and choose, isn't it? It's also where's available. I mean, that's why I said it wouldn't be a Premier League ground, too big. But it's Shrewsbury was actually the one I thought it was going to be the new Meadow. So that would be a fairly new stadium. Didn't have any fixtures that weekend, and decent. It's not far off the transport network. So that's what I was thinking and hoping. Certainly better pitch than Burton's.
I'll tell you what would be a nice idea. Get it booked in nice and early. Advertise it at the beginning of the year. Clubs can plan for it. The grounds can plan for it. And what would they do with the FA Cup final? You think, okay, we've got a big cup final. Oh, well, maybe there might be a few locals that will buy a handful of tickets and build up to it. But fundamentally, the clubs know what's happening. Like we knew about Burton about a month before they publicised it, and I get that there may have been some T's to cross and I's to dot, but do that months before. They knew that there was going to be a playoff, and that's going to involve Northern teams, Midlands teams, and Southern teams. So just do it earlier.
I think to give them part of the reasoning was because obviously they were probably looking for teams that weren't going to be in playoffs to therefore trash the pitch. They want to have 3 games in 3 days on the pitch. I mean, I think it's interesting that the bigger of the 3 games is on the bank holiday Monday. You've got to have 2 games on that already dodgy pitch before you play the biggest game of the three of them, and that's that's purely because of the league standings and not to the teams. You're playing that after you've trashed it for a season.
Well,
plus
here's an idea. Push it back a week. Give both teams 2 weeks to prepare, and then most other divisions will be done. Or just wait till. Let's say hypothetically, there was a Craven Cottage, Fulham said we'll donate our ground for the whole weekend. You can have all 3 games on there. All right, brilliant. Okay, well, if they do that, then everyone can prepare for it. We'll wait 2-3 weeks in order to do that.
Well, this is. I suppose it's getting 3 games into 3 days into 2 days. If you don't, I understand the logic of doing it the bank holiday weekend. You don't want to do it the latter bank holiday weekend because it's just so far away from the end of the season. So I get why they've done it here. They could have rejigged the season. They knew there was going to be a playoff. Expand the leagues, increase the number of teams, so they got more matches. Anyhow, there you go. That's revolutionary. Don't even get me started on revolutionising things like that.
I think whichever way you look at it. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, I just love the idea that FIFA are bringing in of that all professional teams must be playing at least 1 under 21 player per game. I just hope that that's brought into the women's game. So WSL have to play their PGA players in their own teams and don't have to drop the PJs into the FA Women's National League. There you go. Just get that one off my chest as well.
Throw that in there somewhere.
Sorry, too easy on that one.
But yes, I think it is going to be an incredibly exciting weekend. Logistically, maybe not the easiest thing for them to have dealt with, but either way, it will be, I think, an incredibly exciting weekend. As I say, on the Saturday, you'll have the North and the Midlands, so that will be Cheadle against Boulder. On the Sunday, it is the South, so that will be Norwich against Moneyfield, which will, of course, be overshadowed by Stu's big day. And then on Monday, we have got Wolves against Plymouth Argyle for a spot in the WSL2. That's the last little bits to be done. The I's and T's, as Stu would say, for the WNL. But I suppose from us, it's good to say thank you very much for your support again through the season. Episode 60 today, like I say, that's unbelievable that we have. Well, it's not unbelievable.
And it's taken 60 episodes for me and Nick to get on.
It's not unbelievable. It's unbelievable to me that we've managed 60 of these shows, which is quite cool. All started just from that little dream that I had of trying to talk about lower league football as much as we could on the channel as well. So lovely to have done that. So Nick, thank you for joining us as well. Stu, thank you for jumping on for the end there as well. I think really the only thing that we can finish off is to say I hope that Sunday is without question the best day of your life, if not second or third, depending on children's births and such like. I wish you all the health and happiness and a brilliant day, and more importantly than all of that, good weather, because there's nothing worse than having spent all that money on the kit and then it all getting wet when you go wandering out. So
definitely, thank you. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Enjoy it.
And we will hopefully see you next week when you will still be Mr. Barker, but with a ring on the finger. And as Beyonce would say, if you like it, got to put a ring on it. And he has. Congratulations. Good night.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.